Listen to this clip. Vice President of Net Choice, adjunct professor at Internet Law at George Mason Law School, which is a great school, by the way. Here is Carl Szabo. This is what he said. Supreme Court's hearing about social media. Oh, man. I remember when Trump was in the White House. Yep, we need to regulate social media. Biden gets in the White House. OMG. What happens if the liberals take over?
That means the government can control the internet, and the Biden administration will further pressure, harass, and jawbone social media platforms into carrying the content that Biden wants, not what the American people want. So that's why, whether left, right, or center, we must force, protect, and defend the First Amendment from government takeover.
Here on our Newsmaker line is the man himself, one of my favorites, Carl Szabo, here on our Newsmaker line. He's been on with us before. Carl, you are 100% correct. Listen, I love my Governor Ron DeSantis, but this bill does nothing but protect elected officials. And if I don't want to carry some views by the liberal left on a publication like Florida Daily or on this radio show, I'm going to get in trouble for this because I can't exercise my freedom of speech. You have said 1,000 times, let the marketplace decide.
Absolutely. So thanks for having me on. Back in the 60s and 70s, we had something called the Fairness Doctrine, which required equal time for Democrats and Republicans. And the end result was actually no one got time on the news. And so that was actually eliminated during the Reagan administration. And what we saw was the rise of conservative radio. Things like Rush Limbaugh were allowed to exist because we eliminated the so-called Fairness Doctrine. And just like your show can have on whatever host you want, you can have me on. Great, thanks, I love it. Or you can say, Carl, go pound sand. That's fine. I'll be disappointed, but that's your right. The same thing's true for social media platforms and the idea that the government, any government, even if we happen to like the government at that time, can force somebody to say something they don't want to say. That's terrifying.
Carl, I've said this before. I know, and I used to have this argument all the time with my conservative friends because remember, it was, well, when Trump was in the White House, you know, he supported regulating some of these areas. Oh, but when Biden gets in, no, we don't want any regulation. I remind people, my friends that have a Truth Social account, that if this goes through, that, again, the government's going to have the right, and this is what all this court case is about, who's going to oversee what is allowed and what isn't allowed. That means that Truth Social this would also apply to Trump's website as well. No pun intended.
Exactly, yeah. You would have to host Senator Elizabeth Warren and have a bunch of Democrats flood his website with content that he may or may not want. I mean, he may not want a bunch of Democrats seizing control of Truth Social for their narrative. And so that's exactly what we're talking about. But it doesn't stop there. Unfortunately, we just saw a bill passed and signed in Florida called HB 3, and that actually has the opposite approach. So the bill that we're talking about for the U.S. Supreme Court, the law would actually require websites to host lawful but awful content that they don't want. HB 3 actually forbids websites from hosting content or allowing users onto sites, and kind of goes in the opposite direction.
Carl, they're going to try to bring up a bill today to go after TikTok. I'm not a fan. I don't use TikTok, but I got conservatives tell me, man, we plug our church on TikTok. The sermons get hit by hundreds of thousands. I got about a minute or so left here. What should be the view on TikTok should conservatives have?
Yeah, it's a really, really tough question. And so you, of course, have seen this tried. It was tried under President Trump, the same approach of the divest. Of course, threw it out. The state of Montana actually enacted a similar law. The court threw it out, both violations of the First Amendment. And in fact, in Montana, that suit was actually brought by users against the state. So it's going to be really interesting to see if this even survives a First Amendment challenge. But here's the thing. If this gets enacted, it's going to get stuck in court for months, if not years. When today, if we're worried about data transfers, there is something that the White House can do today. They can authorize what's called CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the U.S., to send federal agents to the data centers run by TikTok to make sure data is not flowing back to China. TikTok wants this. They've been asking for it for about 2 years, and it's been sitting, languishing in the Biden administration because they don't want to step up and do their job. Kind of like how he could sign a bill to secure the border.
Great
he could
point.
Take a simple step to secure the data.
Carl Szabo, listen, I want to get you on next week again. I know you're in hot demand. I want to talk about this. I want to have more time with you. Carl Szabo, Vice President of Net Choice, Professor of Internet Law at George Mason and the Scalia Law School. Carl, we need to go further into this. I'm glad you took the time this morning.
Love it. Thanks.
Yeah, man.
Anytime.
This guy, yeah.
All right.
He's like my tag team partner on this one. Just, you don't need the government coming and trying to regulate free speech and social media, no matter what party you're at.
Not even for kids, in your view.
Parents need to come in and regulate that. So instead of the government. All right. Thankful to God every day for the show. A lot of good emails. Thank you for the calls today. And we're ready to go tomorrow morning. You can always email me throughout the day at WBOB.com. Back tomorrow morning, Thursday. Got the ripoff of the week and all sorts of guests from 6 to 9 a.m. Talk Radio WBOB.
AM 600 WBOB Jacksonville 101.1 FM